Weird, right? All right, we are live. Let us know if you can hear us and see us in the chat. Welcome, everyone. I am here. This is such a thrill for me because in the beginning, when I first started BookTube, you and Andrew were two of the people that opened your arms and welcomed me. You're like two of the first people that gave me such a thrill welcoming me to BookTube. It was like, oh my God, I'm talking to Tori. I can't believe it. And Andrew was the same way. And so it's so awesome to get back and talk with you again. And the first time I talked with you, I had just read this. Mm-hmm. And I love me horror. I couldn't wait to read it. It was so good. Such deep, dark themes.
Thank you.
Great story. Truly enjoyed it. Still one of my kind of favorite indie reads that I've done.
Thank you.
And then just hanging out. But then I wanted to have you on live so we can all talk to you about this because I don't want to ruffle feathers or anything, Tori, because I did love this. I love this. But this is a step. This is a step. Tell me that's cool that I say that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's very much like apples to oranges, right? And even writing it, like it's such a different phased. Any book takes a lot out of you, and Phase certainly did. But when you write, anyone who's written an epic fantasy, it's just a completely different level of what it takes out of you as a writer and how much brain power it takes to build something of that magnitude. So yeah, no, I thank you because
yeah, okay.
I put a lot into it. So yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
I didn't want to say that, and then you go, well, I put a lot into Phase.
Come on, John.
I didn't just phone that in. But
I didn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I want to say hello to some fine folks in the chat real quick. Berg is here. Pete is here. Ryan is here. Britton is here. Theo is here.
Hey.
N.A. is here. Oh, Henrik is here. Let's see. We got so many amazing people here. Mendelin, Michael, Christopher Navo.
Hey, Chris.
Evie is here. Brian Bell is here. My brother from the north. Nev is here. Jason is here. Chris is here from Australia. Hey, Chris. So you kind of touched on it there. The amount of brain power, the amount of space it takes. Because let's talk threads. There's a lot of threads going on. There's a lot of POVs and perspectives going on. And what I want to touch base on is not only putting all that together, but putting it together in a way that you can springboard and go forward into books moving on. Like it all has to be, it's like gotta be like the hardest Jenga tower ever, right? Like, and I know like you love to just discover and not plan. I've kind of read some of your things you're putting out and stuff. Like, how does that work to bring all these threads if you just like to kind of let the characters speak to you?
Well, I've had to adjust because I think as any writer who has written multiple books, I think could probably tell you, it's a very different process every book. And so with Phase, it's such an intimate view of two characters, essentially. Like we have our motley crew, but it's really focused on just the sisters, right? And so I'm able to kind of organically discover my way through that story easier because it's much more contained.
I just want to stop you for 1 sec. This is important. Are there going to be spoilers here? Cal wants to. I'm going to keep this as absolutely spoiler free because I want everyone to hang out and we can talk about a lot and still keep it spoiler free and let everyone know how legit great this book is that you should pick it up. So don't worry, we're not going to be dropping any huge spoilers or anything like that. Everything we talk about is going to kind of be like on the back of the book or in the first, several pages or something like that. We'll get into maybe that deep. But other than that, we can kind of keep it amorphous and not go deep into that. I'm sorry, Tori. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So Bloodstones.
So every project is different. This one you've been planning, I know, since you were in college, right?
Yeah, the world has existed since I was in college, and originally I was writing a story that takes place about half a generation after Legends of the Bruhai. Um, and I was doing some backstory work because a couple of years ago I was like, I'm ready to write my big epic fantasy series and get into that again.
Yeah.
And started doing some backstory as you do, and suddenly realized I had some characters that I was really intrigued by, and the idea of this young boy and this execution that happens in the first couple
Yes.
pages. So nobody
Yes.
panic.
Again,
Um,
that's like on the that's on the that's on
like
the back.
page
That's on the
one,
back of the book,
right,
guys. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized I have a series that I need to tell the story of these characters before I can go into what happens in the series that I started 10 years ago. And Garen, who's the first POV that you meet, the little boy who's watching the execution, his story became very quickly the backbone of this beginning book, and he just kind of appeared, and it kept building and building and building, and it almost was scary how much information was coming out of the world building as I started getting into it.
And was it effortless? Like when it just started going, did it just seem like it was like a pipe burst or something? Like what
Yeah,
was?
I mean, kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
once I got into the actual writing, then I ran into some discovery writer problems where I really had to take a step back and dig into Garen's character more, because I realized about 3 chapters into writing it that originally it was just Garen, and he was the only POV in this story. And I was like, that's not gonna work. Because he like, the story is so much bigger than him, and it just wasn't fair to the reader to expect Garen to carry everything that was going to happen in this trilogy. So yeah, it was a lot of world building. Some of it I'd already done, so like the general world and continent and the magic system and all that kind of stuff was kind of there already. It was just digging into this particular country's history and the politics. And I decided to challenge myself, because political fantasy really scares me in terms of writing, just
Oh, that's
because
surprising. Yeah.
it's so, like you said, it's a web and
Right.
everything's interconnected, and there's so many things, and there's always those fans that are like, so I read this and there's this one thing that like doesn't quite, and you're always afraid of that as a writer.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to challenge myself. Let's write a political fantasy. And I think I maybe bit off a tiny bit more than I was anticipating. But yeah, I wrote most of it with just minimal outlining.
Wow. Really?
Yep. And now that I'm into book 2, I have an outline.
Okay. So you've come over to the dark side. You're just like, I
have.
got, okay.
It's
All
too
right.
big. There's too many things. There's too many characters. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I just need to see this, visualize it more.
Yeah, absolutely. So Theo called it, man. It starts off with a bang. I do want to get a little bit into this.
Yeah.
I love how this book starts. We've got,
Thank you.
and again, guys, it's like on the back of the book cover. We got like 3 young brothers. They sneak out. They want to watch this execution because, good times.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And
Teenage boys. Yeah, absolutely.
kind of, this is like this huge fulcrum point throughout the entire society, this execution. This is like bubbled up because of, wow, fears and the status quo is not going to hold anymore after this execution. And after these 3 young boys watch it, how it impacts each of them going forward, and it changes the world, it changes them, and the story is just completely beautiful. And this is the same month I read a different book that had a bunch of young characters in it in a school setting, right? And I want to tell you how you hit this out of the park as opposed to the other one I read, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed that other one too.
Yeah.
But some of the things you did on this that I think were just so amazing, and how you hit them out of the park so well. One of those things is, well, let's kind of stay in order. I don't want to go into too many twists, but there are some things that happen, obviously. Some twists and turns start to happen after this beginning.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you, one of the tools in a writer's box is first person, third person, but how you're going to write this. Some of the things happen and you're dealing with the same, I love some Tekken themes of
You noticed that? Yeah.
of authority maybe overstepping a little bit and young people getting in the crosshairs of it.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, this could have been even more visceral in a first person. But I think you were so smart and showed such restraint not doing it that way because it kind of had that legendary retelling feel.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't in first person, even though that would have maybe gone for the quicker hit of like the visceral punch.
Yeah.
So when you were choosing how to tell it, did you think about these things as a writer? How did you light on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I started it, the trilogy title, Legends of the Bruhai, I've always been intrigued with historical figures who almost like, that Achilles at one point was a 3-year-old just toddling around playing with a ball or something,
Sure.
but throughout the time that those names kind of get deified by history, we lose the humanity of the legends in our stories. And so looking at half a generation before the story I originally started telling, I was like, where do the legends of the generation before come from? How do they start? Where do we, how does this history get set up? And so I think the third person was a very easy, it has a more, it's an easier way of using that kind of ancient
Yes.
kind of, it immediately lends a more ancient atmosphere to a story like this, which was really important. And also, first person, I think, takes a very particular character. And not to say that I don't think I could have written a first person from Garen, but I think the other thing that this story specifically deals with in theme is a kind of dissociation or detachment. A lot of that happens in the story. And I think being outside of Garen especially, but the other characters as well, being outside of their head gives that sense of slight detachment to the reader already. So when we're dealing with that theme and you bring those into the story with the characters, it's easier, I think, for the reader to just kind of slip into that immersion of detachment.
Right.
Yeah.
It completely worked for me in that I did get the feeling of, oh, this is something somewhat handed down. We're going to watch this journey of these characters becoming huge, iconic, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of starts, you get that feeling of this is like through that mist of history and you're kind of getting it handed down to you as opposed to it's present happening right to these people right now. And I just thought that was a really brilliant stroke on your part.
Thank you.
And I love that you bring up dissociative. Now, another theme I want to bring up that I really loved in this, and this is how I think you nailed this so well. You move on, this character moves on, I'm not going to say how, a little bit of an academic setting, and that's as far as I'll go, and he's in with a bunch of other younger characters, right?
Yep.
The enormous theme and how important identity is. Naming, where you come from.
Yep.
What you call yourself, how that defines you, how you see yourself in your mind, who you are, all those kind of things. And you took the time with quite a few characters in this setting, you took the time to find each core of them, who they were, because of their identity. Did they have to let go of it? Would they let go of it? Would they come back to it?
Yeah.
What did naming mean in their culture? All these type of things. So you knew immediately, moving on pretty quickly, exactly who all these characters were around the central character of Garen in this POV story thread. The other book I read is like, oh, there's like 30 kids in an orphanage, and it's like a lot of times I'm like, okay, wait a minute, which kid was this? It took you a minute, and it would take me out of the read. That never happened here because of that theme you had running through. And all the way through the twists and turns to the very end, that theme of identity was such a beautiful through line
Thank
Just
you.
so well executed. You want to talk a
you.
bit about that? I didn't expect that from you.
I think it's a big. I've always been very fascinated by the theme of identity and the theme of like a loss of self. And I
Yes.
think for so many people that have experienced trauma, especially at a very young age, that is a huge line of the healing path of learning to rediscover who am I, what is my voice. And one of the major themes in Legends of the Bruhai as a trilogy is when that loss of self is suppressed for so long, what does that do to the person who's suppressing it? What does that do? How long can you exist that way
Right. What
before
is the
things?
cost?
What are
What
the
is
right?
what is
What's
the
the cost of
toll? How
that?
much do you lose of
Exactly.
yourself? I mean,
Exactly.
it's classic, mind trip a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and you see that, I think identity is a major theme for all three of the major perspectives. There's four in the book, but there's three major ones. And that's a huge theme for all three of them. And I'm very much interested in looking at similar themes through very different lenses. So,
Yeah.
for example, even in Phased, you have two sisters that have experienced a lot of the same traumas in early life, but they're
Mm-hmm.
handling it and coping with it in completely opposite ways.
Yeah.
Right. And that contrast has always been really interesting to me. So looking at identity from Garen's perspective versus Sindri's perspective, one of the other
Right.
POVs, and versus Zario's POV, like how does that translate to all of these different threads in the same world, and how do their different cultures, because all three of them grow up in different cultures
Right.
essentially,
Right. Yeah.
even though Zario and Garen are from the same one, they grow up very differently.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't say hi. Okay, I can't say hi. Theo, I am not a car
Yes.
salesman, but what I will tell you is right down there, we have the link to her first book, Phased, and Bloodstones. And you will do yourself a favor if you click on that link, my friend. Everyone should absolutely pick this book up. I love, Tori, that you brought up Sindri and these other things, because where I was going to go next is, okay, if it wasn't enough, like I would have been all in on this story of Garen and what's around him, and this arduous journey that he has to take, even through these mind games, and how is he going to hold on to himself, and how much is it going to break our heart if he can't, and all this is going on. You juxtapose this beautifully with another group of people. Now we could let me just say this is Asian influenced, right?
Partially, yep.
Yeah, because what we have here is Garen comes from kind of a bit of an aristocratic background, kind of a city mouse, right?
Yep.
Now we kind of go to I'm going to say like kind of like a Mongolian tribal type of situation.
Yeah.
And we got the Tori Tekken, two close twins. I could see you and your friend, Sarah Springs all over that. Yeah. And how this is so beautifully juxtaposed, because the court intrigue we have, everything that's going on, the machinations here in this city. Whereas tribally, and this, on the other hand, I'm not saying everything's rosy, but it's all about loyalty and family and honor, and it's built in the leadership fashion is built in such a different way, and it's juxtaposed so well. So not only do we have this story that you'll be all in, you completely have a 180 flip side going on what's over here, and this becomes completely heartbreaking in the story going forward here. You want to talk a little bit about the twins?
Yes. So Sindri and Senna are two warrior daughters of a tribal chieftain in a country far to the south of where Garen starts. And it was funny because Sindri, which won't surprise anyone who's read her character, I didn't have any plans for a character like her. And I had written a little bit of the beginning of the book, and I was like, I like some contrast, and I feel like I need an outside view. I need something where we're going away from Katesh, we're going away from the embroilment of politics and Garen and Zario and everything they're dealing with, and Master Loey. And Sindri just kind of came into my brain like an absolute freight train, which surprises no one who's read her character. And I had always wanted to write a character in the Malecki Horse Lords area.
Sure.
And I started just discovery writing that first page of that first chapter she was in. And it was like she just was alive and vibrant and, you know, crashing through the page first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What does it feel like to see something like this from, I mean, come on. This is from an absolute pillar of the fantasy literature. Janny Wirt saying, Bloodstones is an easy read, smooth as butter, with some very sharp moments and cutting edges.
I mean, she is one of the queens of our genre, and just the fact that she's read it, there's something incredibly impactful for me as a young female fantasy writer, to know that I'm preceded by legends like Janny, is just really encouraging, honestly.
Not only preceded, but I absolutely think she's completely in your corner with comments like that. And I want to springboard off of that comment and go into another one of the things that I so loved this about the book. Yes, it's got sharp edges and it's got these moments of chaos. Yes, you have huge set pieces. You've got you've got things that are happening, but when things percolate up to these chaotic moments, these violent moments, these rabid moments, so much of the time is, now huge set pieces, sure, but so many of the times is two characters faced off, and what is the price going to be of this?
Yeah.
Nobody gets into a scrap. Nobody gets into these violent moments or called to these high tension moments that don't pay a price or don't pay a toll and don't carry that toll on their soul moving forward through the pages. Like there's everything has weight, everything has consequence. Was that important to you while you were putting it together? Because I was so moved by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my big considerations as an author always is enjoy isn't the right. I find it very important to me to write stories that have very strong emotional weight.
Yeah.
Because those are the kind of stories that I've grown up on and loved and that have influenced me. And I think for me, one of the biggest disappointments when I read stories is when I see moments of emotional impact that are just kind of gratuitous.
Sure.
Or they feel unearned and there isn't enough weight behind them, or I'm not as invested in that character to really go, oh my gosh, and I need to put the book down for just a minute here and just process that. And so one of the promises that I've made to my readers, whether it's in Phased or Bloodstones or anything I write in the future, is I will do my absolute best always, those emotional gut punch moments that exist in the stories I write, to earn every moment. I don't ever want my readers to go away and feel like I just threw things in there for shock value, or that I expected an easy, cheap emotional moment. I think because you're dealing with, even in fiction, you're dealing with lives. And I think there's a weight to that in reality that oftentimes we don't give the weight that it needs. I mean, you see that in so much of the way that people speak about and to each other, and forget that there is a person on the other with lived experience on the other end of that comment or that conversation. So that's a big deal for me. Even with fiction, I don't take the lives of my characters for granted. I don't want to see them as being easy, cheap ways to get an emotional rise out of a reader. That's not who they are to me.
Yeah, I so felt that throughout. It was like every bit of, oh, these were hard choices to move to violence, and they took
Yeah.
a toll.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there was never just that, oh, that was cool action. That was a cool action scene, bro. Like that never,
Yeah.
that never happened. It was, there was
Yeah.
always, and then you also had stakes that were quite high through this about, I'm not quite sure who's going to make it.
Right.
You know, it was,
Yeah.
which was part of that because it was all earned, and then there was a toll being paid on the back end of it, which
Right.
I don't always see. And I know you've been writing books since you were 14, so maybe all these things have come down to you, but I don't see that necessarily from people just kind of on, you know, their first epic fantasy that they're putting out there. So I was just, I was blown over in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the books that I've written up to this point, this was my 12th book published since I was 14, and I think in a lot of ways I have to give a nod to the books I started writing even as a kid of getting me to this point. There's a lot of stepping stones up to this point. And also to the amazing stories in every medium that have really stayed with me by other writers throughout my life, and just those were the stories that the ones that stuck with me. I always ask myself why. Well, it's because it's earned. Like, I never feel like it's cheap. It's so deep, and it pulls me in, and it never lets me go even after the story's over.
Yeah. Let me talk a little bit. And anybody that has questions in the chat, if you have a question, you haven't read it, if you have read it and want to touch something, I will try and pick it up real quickly. I'm going to do this extremely just for Tyler. I want to talk about the world building because the world building blew my hair back. Okay, there you go, Tyler. Tyler just almost got to check, blew my hair back off my bingo card. That was for you, brother. Okay, it was so rich. Doing the political machinations, it was so rich all the way back to the creation myth. That I feel a lot of this is revolving around, and maybe coming into play even more so in future books. I don't know. I've got a feeling. This is a world that has lost its magic.
Yes.
And because of this fulcrum point in history, this very personal fulcrum point in history, they're trying to reobtain this, or there are groups trying to reobtain this. And I think some of this, all the way back to the creation myth, is going to come into play during this quest of trying to reobtain it in future books. That's just me. But what a rich world for me to kind of go off on mysteries such as that. And my wheels are turning to try and answer questions like that. The lore goes all the way back to these belief systems, and different belief systems for the different groups that were juxtaposed in their leadership. Also different beliefs there.
Yeah.
What was that like? How many threads did you have to pull together? And did that start back in college? Did you have like a big board with a bunch of red yarn that was going, you know?
I probably should have. I think I'm really coming into that moment now, going into book 2, because I, set up and introduced so many of these things in book 1, and I really wanted book 1 to feel very much like there's a lot that happens in book 1.
Yeah.
It's not just there for kicks and giggles, it's there because I really want to give my readers time with those characters, so that we earn the moments to come. But when it comes to the magic system, that's been in place for well over a decade. And I always knew I wanted to write an epic fantasy where the magic had been lost for a long time, for a couple of reasons. I find it very interesting when you place a lot of limitations on magic, and especially when magic is being used by people who have no concept of what they're doing. Like, really, when you look at Master Lowy has spent his entire life, one of the POV characters, studying this magic and searching out every possible scrap of lore about it, and he still knows just this tiny little tip of the iceberg, and how dangerous even that tiny little amount can be. And it also allows me to tap into an underlayer of the story, which, as you mentioned, goes back a long way. So the original plan for how this is going to set up, if it currently, is the Legends of the Bruhai. You're going to get a lot of the initial, like, we're kind of like digging back into the magic and trying to figure out how does this work and what does it do and all this stuff. And then once this trilogy is over, I'm hoping to write a novella or a standalone that goes back thousands of years that is going to explain where the magic went and why it is the way that it is. And then in the second series, things are going to get a lot more magnified with that.
When you were in college, where were you thinking story-wise? Was it after this tie-in novella? Like it was this magnified story and you felt like, oh man, I got to go back and
dial that back. Yeah. I want the intimate story first. I want who are the real people and in this story, and how do they become the legends of the next series. And it was really funny because there will be obviously some crossover characters between the two series, and I'm never going to mention who, but I had written a couple of characters 10 years ago that had their origins, I thought, in this second series. And as I was writing Bloodstones and figuring out, okay, because I know the ending of the trilogy and all the stuff that happens in the next two books, and I started looking at my characters that cross over, and I was like, oh my gosh, those two characters I wrote 10 years ago perfectly fit.
Yeah.
These characters from the original from the Bruhai trilogy. So they are already there in that next trilogy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that just kind of fell into place. That's
Isn't
amazing.
That the coolest?
Yep.
Andrew is here. We got to say hello to the wizard.
Hey,
He says he watched you. More Tori today. Just watched the chat over on Patricia Meredith's channel this morning. So he's just following you around BookTube.
I guess so.
And K2U3 says, hi Tori, hi John. I'm really enjoying the talk, but it's 2:30 at night for me, so I have to watch the replay of this in the morning. Have fun talking good night. Thanks so much for checking in at all. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sure. Have fun catching up. It'll be there for you. What is that like? Like, do you start to feel like, oh wow, some force is taking care of me, like that?
Sure.
Like the Legos just went like that. That's just too cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's those moments are always so great as a writer when you realize that somewhere in your subconscious things were just clicking into place and you had no idea. And I think those are the moments that really make me realize why I love doing what I do and why storytelling is something that means so much to me. Because it just feels so, it's like everything's just right. And you're like, yep, this is the story I was meant to be telling. And I can't wait to it's killing me keeping all of the secrets. It's killing me, John.
Well, you have to keep them.
I know.
Look, you have no idea. I've got I'm keeping them best as I can. Let me tell you something. Another thing I enormously appreciated. Kyle has stopped by. I think I missed where Kyle said hello, but Daniel is here. I've missed so many people. But anyway, I could tell immediately this is written by someone that knows how to sit a horse, as my father told me many a times, you look like you don't know how to sit that horse. This was written by someone that knows how to sit a saddle, knows how to sit a horse. I loved it. It was so amazing. I'm sure Janny can chime in here too, because To Ride Hell's Chasm gave me the same tingle, and that's for you, Tyler.
Bingo.
Yeah, I can't remember who else said that. So, what was that like, bringing all that to it? Did you know setting out?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to write the Mongolian piece because I wanted to bring the horse tribe in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Maleki tribe is what so I have a very Nordic background, probably shocking, I know. And so I actually have ancestry leading all the way back to the father of the first king of unified Norway and like a lot of Nordic Viking things, right? Mm-hmm. And so I kind of, for the Maleki people, I kind of took the Mongolian idea and the Vikings, and I kind of just put them in a blender. And like, what does that look like? You know?
I thought there was some Viking vibe to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I listened to a lot of Viking tribal chants while I was
Mhm.
writing Sindri's POV.
I thought that. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah.
The horses are always something that I will include whenever I have the opportunity, because I have loved them since I was a little girl. I've owned horses. I've ridden horses for years and years. And that is one of my things in fantasy. It's like, if you have something that you're really passionate about and put it in there. Like, figure out a way to incorporate that into your story, because I think it adds such a unique and personal touch.
Yeah.
And
write what you know.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think it's fun, because in this culture, the horses are such an incredibly important part of who they are as a people, that I wanted to give Sindri's horse and some of the other horses some of that character as well,
Yes.
because that's part of who they are as a people.
Yeah. See what I can get away. This is Griffin saying, sit a horse. Nobody says that. When Jacob's not here to call me on all my sayings, I get to say a lot of things. I can't say. Thank you, by the way, Griffin. That's very kind. I can't say a lot of the things my dad told me growing up, because everybody would leave. It's like, oh my! I didn't know he had that kind of potty
demonetized.
Mouth. Yeah, and very quickly. So you feel like you're in the saddle of this series. You're writing what you were supposed to write. You're writing what you've been called to write.
Yeah.
Let me call you out, because I think your next book coming is not in this series.
It is not.
And let me tell you something. When I got to the end of this book, when I got to the last page, and I saw this continues in Queen's Wolf, I said, where do I buy Queen's Wolf?
2025.
January 2025?
No, you don't. You don't want it in January 2025. I promise.
I wanted it right away. Well,
that's good. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the easy explanation for that is, like I said before, writing an epic fantasy of this magnitude and pouring everything I have into this series, it takes a lot out of me emotionally, and it takes a lot out of me mentally. And I knew that if I didn't want those creative juices to just stop altogether, I needed to take a minor shift and write something in a completely different vein that was a lot faster, snappier, and easier to just go,
Mm-hmm.
As I'm sitting there with my red threads on the wall, trying to figure out how the heck all these things go together for Bruhai. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in, I don't want to fall victim to a hustle culture and mentality with this series, because 10 years from now, when it's, 5 years from now, when it's done, or less, I don't want to look back and feel like I rushed it.
Yeah.
It's really important. This series is one that I feel very, very strongly is important for me to put everything I have into every single volume of this series. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be waiting for years and years for it, I promise. But it's not going to be like one a year. Like, I just can't keep up that kind of a speed.
Well, Daniel, who's a very wise man, says Cold Silver for Souls is going to be good, though. So we're all right. I don't know what Cold Silver for Souls is about. All I know is it's not Queen's Wolf.
I know. I'm sorry, John.
And I want some Queen's Wolf. I haven't read, and I have my copy from Kickstarter.
This one?
Yes, I have it right back here.
Yep.
And is the one you're doing, is that Cold Silver for Souls, does that come off the short story that I have to look forward to? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, then I'm going to forgive you, because I'm going to start reading some of the short stories. At least.
And I want to reassure everybody, like, this does not mean that I'm not working on Queen's Wolf. I am 100%. But, like, it's such a meticulous thing. And I'm the type of person where I struggle with sequential processing. And so it takes me longer, ADHD friends. And so it's harder for me to really make sure that everything is in the right order and, like, really streamlined. And I don't want to I don't want to give you a book that you're disappointed in when you read it. You know what I
get
mean?
That. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
yeah.
Look, Daniel, I think he says it perfectly. Hey, Sanderson is known for writing fast,
Yep.
and I read The Way of Kings 13 years ago. He takes his time with series 2. So, and I know this series, I think this one's special. I think that I just felt it when I was reading it. I just think it's special for you.
Thank you.
So I don't want you to rush.
I agree.
I'm kind of kidding.
Yeah,
but
this is I can't say that this series will be my magnum opus because I have no idea what I will write in the future.
Well, you're very young, Tori. Don't say that yet.
But I wouldn't be mad if it was. That's the kind of series this is for me.
Yeah, look, someone from the outside, from the cheap seats looking in, I think it's special.
Thank you.
When I was reading this, it's like, oh my, she did something special.
Thank you.
Like this is not just a story, and I want to talk to you about that in a second. Christopher Novel says, should we read the short story first from Advent before the book comes out?
Yeah, you definitely can if you want like a little bit of a taste test. So John, you're well known for your amazing sales pitches on books. So I want to run this one by you. I have a one-sentence pitch for you for Cold Silver.
Ooh, we got an elevator pitch. Go.
Ready?
I like this.
You have a necromancer bounty hunter in a world inspired by the Yukon Gold Rush.
Jesus, take my money.
So that's Cold Silver.
That sounds really fun. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's and that's in first person. So you are right in the head of that character, and she is so much fun to write. I'm taking my upbringing in rural Midwest, and I'm giving her that kind of snarky, small town lone wolf kind of vibe, and she has been keeping my creativity like vibrant and excited this year, and it's been a blast to write.
Yeah, Cal the High Storm 117 says that sounds awesome. I could not agree more, Cal. Cinna says fun, absolutely.
Thank you.
When does that come out? Is that this year?
Possibly.
And I feel like I'm stressing you out because
no.
Don't let me stress you out because I'm a big fan of Tori Tech, and I read all your emails, and it's like I know the stress this one brought you, and you tried to do it so fast, and it stacked up on you. And don't let me do that. I just want you to know I'm looking forward to this stuff.
Nobody can stress me out more than I stress myself out, John. Like that's absolutely, so don't worry about it. But no, my goal was the end of this year, if not very early next year. It's not going to be much longer. And I think it's one of those things where my personal life has been crazy this year. And so it has been really difficult to, emotionally stay on top of that to keep up that creativity. But I'm doing my absolute best to give you guys a book as soon as I possibly can because I'm excited.
And it's like, I know you're a booktuber too, and a mom and a wife, and it's like, it's, I don't know how you do it, quite honestly. So you're a marvel to us all, Tori Tekken.
Thanks. I think it's just, honestly, it keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah, there you go. Keeps you off the streets at night.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let me hit you with one thing, and this is just for me. I said I'm not doing spoilers, and this is not a spoiler. But it's just for me.
Yeah.
Queen's Wolf.
Yes.
I feel like we're dealing the way this ended. I feel we're dealing more Sindri-centric in book 2. Is that correct?
There's gonna be a lot of Sindri in book 2.
And are we going to start to tie these threads together, I think, right?
A lot of people have been talking about how desperately they're like, but I want to bring that convergence we want that so much as readers, right?
Yes, yes.
So I think what I can tell everyone is that I think you will be satisfied on that account in book 2.
All right. I will not press you more than that. But I do want to press you a little bit on how some of the writing, some of the writing and some of the booktube, and I know you've been having to pull back a bit from booktube because there's just enough hours in a day.
Right.
And I know you got the wrong kind of charge cable. And I was so happy to see this last video come out and you say, look, I didn't mean to be gone this long. It's not what I planned.
Yeah.
So are we going to get to see your face more coming up?
Yes, that's the plan. So you guys, it was a mess. Like my computer quit charging and I bought a replacement cord and I had the same problem within a couple of days and I started panicking because I was very much in the hustle mindset where I was like, I got to write and I got to do these things. Blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
And I took it into the computer place because I thought there was a problem with the charge port, and this is all boring. But the end of the story is that the cord was not a high enough wattage because I am not a tech person and I don't know. So so my cord should be arriving tomorrow, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be writing on my own laptop again. But I think it was a little bit of God saying, okay, you need to take a step back and just unplug for a little bit because you're stressed.
So important.
Yeah. So it's been a good step back. I think I really needed it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but don't worry, for the channel and the books, I will be jumping back into writing, and actually unplugging for a little bit got me really excited to write again, because you know how that is, like when you really want, you don't know how much you want a thing until you can't have it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like saying, John, don't think about German chocolate cake.
I want German chocolate cake.
Right? And so like as soon as my computer was gone, I was like, oh, but I want to write this scene and that scene and So I think
now
that
you
was
can.
good.
Now you can.
Yeah. So it'll be good.
Let me hit up you a little bit, and you've said it a couple times, and it's really struck me, the hustle mindset, the hustle culture.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think this is special. I'm going to bring it up again. I think it belongs on every bookshelf in every bookstore, everywhere. And I can't believe it's not. I'm over and over again blown away sometimes by the indie things I read and why I can't find them in bookstores.
Yep.
Is there an avenue for you there? Or are you strictly committed to self-publishing so you can stay in control of these characters? You don't want to let go of that? I know you're a huge proponent of self-publishing. Is that something? We just had someone ask earlier, and I wanted to get to it and I missed it. We want broken binding editions. We'd absolutely buy collectible editions of these.
Broken binding, hit me up.
Yeah. So is there... Is it hard to walk that tightrope of wanting to do the hustle, stay true to the self-published thing, but at the same time, you're a cottage industry. You're your own business. You've got to get product out. But as an artist, you've got to take the time and space to let the creativity flow and be true, and not just rush product out. What type of tightrope is that to walk, and how hard is it?
Razor thin, honestly, I think. And that's one of those things where I know authors in this community who are putting out multiple books a year and they're killing it. And I'm like, you guys rock. Do you? Like, you know? Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to understand that, like, every writer has a different process. Every writer has a different threshold of limitation too. Like, you know, like you mentioned, I am a mom. And I have a lot of things that I do outside of the home for personal things, you know, and so I just don't have the same time and space that I can use to dedicate 100% to writing this series. And that's hard because I want to, but I also... I want to be a mom too. Like I'm not willing to give anything up, basically. Like I'm just greedy that way.
You know? And you've got to take every moment you can right now because, it's 100%. So fast.
Yeah.
It's so
and
fast.
My oldest is turning 12 in December, and I just like, so I'm trying really hard to, it's important for my kids to see me pursuing a passion. I think that's incredibly important for kids to see their parents be passionate about things and pursue things. But I think indie especially sometimes falls into the pit of hustle, book out. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's so stressful, and it's too much for a lot of people.
To me, it's so, and I'm not, again, I have been over and over gobsmacked, smacked in the face, hair blown back by what I find self-published or published, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, wow, you've got to do your own marketing. You've got to do your own, and there's so many hats you're having to wear and get product out.
Right.
And that's, to me, that feels like, I don't want it to be product. I want it to be art. I want it to be story.
Yes.
And
Amen.
sometimes
Yep.
that takes a little bit of extra time. And
Yep.
it takes sometimes, like the wizard is saying here, some extra hands. I dislike indie hustle culture. I think the books would be even better if people would slow down and do more edits and cut down these 900-page books to a smaller, concise novel. Maybe if you had time with a developmental editor or things like that,
Right.
or more beta readers, or
Right.
or just took some extra time. And again, like some people are like laser fast, and I read their
insane.
stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like, that's just crazy.
How did you do
even
that?
How did you do that? Everyone's different. I'm not trying to
100%.
generalize.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
strictly talking to Tori about how hard it is to walk that
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. And for me, that's something where the priority for me is I feel like I'm an artist first. And if it means that I take a little longer and I have to rebuild some of that momentum, that's what I'll do, because this story is way too important to me to rush it. And I want it to be, I want to know that when I hand you, metaphorically, the paperback of The Queen's Wolf signed to John, love Tori,
Which I will buy one.
right?
I will order that.
So when
Just
you
like
get
I did
that,
this one.
signed and everything.
Signed and everything. Absolutely.
When you get that book, I want to be proud of every page you're reading.
Yeah.
That's important to me.
So far, I think you absolutely should be.
Thank
when I
you.
was 100 or so pages in, the first DM I sent to Tori, letting everybody know was, did you know that you caught the ball that square? Did you know you hit it out? You should feel it. I think you
I
should.
do.
It's like you hear stories about Michael Jordan, like you're in the zone. Like you should know. I just think you should absolutely know.
Well, and I think it's something that's not a comparison thing at all. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've learned that I can accept compliments like that, because it's really hard. A lot of authors are like, you can scare them off with a compliment so quickly.
Yeah.
And this is the best that I can write right now. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of how much I've put into this series and how much it means to me. It means so much to me, and it's coming straight out of my heart and soul. And I hope that that translates to the people that read it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm the only person I'm competing against is myself.
That's profound. And I think that here
Thank you.
is Cinepalma right here saying, at least you guys are super supportive of each other. And this is another thing that so strikes me about the indie published community.
Yeah.
You're competing with no one but yourself. I
Yeah.
want to put the best work out. I want to be state of the art Tori Tekken right now.
Yep.
And that may be different next year, 5 years, a decade from now.
Right.
But everyone else, I'm here to give a hand and help up
Yes.
in this community. And
Yep.
that is amazing. And I found that over and over and over again with this community and talking to the authors.
Yeah.
And you thank so many of them in here. I know
Yeah.
Andrew does the
Meredith,
audiobook
yeah.
for yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is it like working in that community if you can shine a light for those of us that don't?
The indie space as a whole is just, it's one of those places that gives you hope for humanity, honestly. Like, it's just, there's so many amazing people from so many different backgrounds and places in the world who are writing amazing stories and really pushing the boundaries of what fantasy can look like, which is beautiful to see.
Yes.
And I think there is, for the most part, just such a strong sense of a rising tide raises all ships. And we're here to show people that fantasy written by indie authors is amazing. And there are so many good stories in this community and people that are just phenomenal writers. In such a variety of subgenres. There's literally something for everyone here. And I think that's the cool part is, you know, if someone comes to me and they're like, well, I'm not really into like Asian inspired fantasy right now, I can be like, okay, great. I have a list of friends. Like, what are you into right now? You know, like, and that's, it's just really empowering, I think, as a community to all lift each other up. And it's not, yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels a little bit like a competition because that's human life. You know, we're all, you know, it's hard sometimes, but that's normal. And I think at the end of the day, we're all really happy for each other's successes because that just shows that indie authors are doing great things.
I mean, I guess everyone is human. You might have that voice, but it seems to me like you guys listen to the finer angels so quickly and support each other so well. It's really stunning. Coming from a theater world, like it's really stunning to me. I got to call out Kay here.
Theater's cutthroat, man.
Yeah, theater's no joke. You watch your back.
Yep.
I'm trying to do Kay's little, heck yeah, Bloodstones is amazing. No one can do Kay's voice. Kay has the best voice on BookTube.
Absolutely. I keep telling her she should narrate audiobooks.
Oh my, she'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So let me just segue a little bit.
Yeah.
Into BookTube for you. Let's see what Griff can say. Every story is different. There can be 1,000-page books that are the exact length they needed to be, and there are 12-page short stories that are also the perfect length.
Yep.
So
totally agree.
I would love people to take all the time they need to make their art, though. And it hurts me to think that they feel in any way that they're on a clock.
Yeah.
Because
I
feel art and story should exist outside time. I feel like when it works its best, it should be outside of the constraints of time.
I think there's a fine line there too, though, because absolutely agree. Because I'm a musician. I'm a theater nerd. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
Like I love art. I just love art. And I totally agree that you really want to give it the time to be the best version of itself that it can be in that moment. 20 years from now, could I write a better version of Bloodstones? Possibly.
You would hope so.
I hope so. But then I'll be writing something that represents me then, and I think that's a tightrope too, because you definitely want to keep yourself going and not, because if you slow down and you really start getting in your own head too much with art, that imposter syndrome is a nasty, fast.
That can sneak up.
Yeah. And I've had to really, I've been dealing with a lot of that this year and trying to really come back to my center.
True.
Yeah. Everybody, every writer who, it doesn't matter how many books that you've written, most of us deal with a lot of that. I mean, artists in general, I feel like, it's the, can I really do this? I've written the first one. Can I actually write the second one? Is it going to be as good? Is it going to be a disappointment? Can I pull all these threads together? Oh my gosh, am I going to remember what the characters sound like? I mean, it's just a never-ending, cacophony.
You know what that is? Let me just tell you what, from my experience, and I've walked the planet a few more years than you, and I took an artist journey that was a different medium.
Yeah.
That's fear.
Yeah.
And if somebody offers you a role or something that scares you, you take it.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yep.
So that's all that is. That just lets you know you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, I think it shows how the depth of how much you care about the story you're telling. If you're having that much imposter syndrome about it, it shows that you really care about making this story, the best version of itself. And I always recenter of okay, you could quit. I always give myself that option. You could quit. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, ooh.
That's true. I mean, you don't have contracts signed with Orbit or Tor. No one's knocking your door down. But you know what? That would be a lie to yourself. You wouldn't.
Exactly.
You can't look at yourself in the mirror and do that, because that's not who Tori is.
No, I couldn't stop writing if I tried. I was born to do this, and this is something that comes. You can't stop that. It's like trying to put a dam in a river that's too small. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I truly look. If it means anything to you, I will just say I think you're not only a natural-born storyteller. I think you're a writer.
Thank you, John.
Those two things came together in this for me, and
thank you.
I really think this one's special, and I think you took such a huge step in an artist's journey. And I think that is what's so thrilling about this community and the BookTube community, that we can be not only audience members to this amazing story, we can be audience members to Tori's artistic journey, and we get to talk to her and take these steps with her. And these are some huge steps, everyone watching.
Thank you.
Click that link and take this step with Tori on this journey. This one's special. I can't tell you enough. Let's segue a little bit to BookTube. I tried to do
Right.
it before, and I got this book pulls me back in. So have you been reading anything great, even though you've been taking some time off?
Yes. What have I been reading? Well, I'm currently reading Return of the Griffin by J.C.M. Byrne, which is book 2 in his Wistful Ascending series. And what a breath of fresh air. Honestly,
Yeah.
it has been a great levity read, like fun characters, just enough depth to really pull you in with some great humor and just good old superhero goodness. It's so good.
I can't believe I haven't read this yet.
Oh, John, you're going to love it. You're going to love
love comics. I owned a
You're gonna
comic
love it.
shop. Like, how can I not have read this? Yeah.
You're going to absolutely love Wistful Ascending. And I'm excited to start reading the Books of Babel later this year, Sunland Ascends.
That's on my list too.
Read my first Anthony Ryan this year and loved it.
Andrew's always on me to do.
Bloodsong's so good.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
good. One of the best. One of the soapbox things about young characters in epic fantasy.
You go. I'm going to sit back and enjoy my beverage.
One of my soapbox things is oftentimes when you write young characters in an epic fantasy world and you pull that epic fantasy world into the angst of these very young characters, it loses the epic fantasy feel and it starts to feel more YA and more, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're
you're saying the world can narrow.
Exactly. It makes the world smaller to fit the characters. I love so passionate about young characters that are in a world that is way too big for them. And that was kind of what I tried to capture with Garen and Zario and Bloodstones. And man, Anthony Ryan in Bloodsong does that masterfully well.
Cine Poma says Anthony is my Sanderson.
He's so good.
Yeah. You do that with this, and I like that too, when kind of the history of this world is calling these characters to a destiny that they're not ready for. That is so great. But I can see what you're saying. Sometimes young characters, a young protagonist, they're concerned about what young people are concerned about. And sometimes for what I find for an older reader, it's like, oh, that narrows the scope for me. I have a hard time getting in or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying. So let me talk about something that I know you didn't like. And I was really hoping you'd like it, Tori.
Oh man, which one?
You know what I'm going to bring up. I know you went forward in Red Rising, and I was hoping you were really going to like it, and it just didn't work for you, which is totally cool. It's totally cool. Everybody gets to look. Everyone brings their soul and their heart and their self to the work, and the work impacts them the way the work impacts them. So I completely respect and validate every feeling you had. But I was so rooting for you to like it after you liked the first trilogy so much.
I know. Nobody wanted me to love the end of the series or the second series more than I did. I promise. I'm still a massive Pierce Brown fan, and I am so ready for him to change my mind in Lightbringer. I'm so open to that. The first trilogy is one of my favorite things I've ever read. I've read the first book like 6 or 7 times. And I read it like right after it came out. So I've been a Red Rising fan for ages. And I took a really long time to read the second series, as most people know, just because I was a little apprehensive about it. I wasn't sure how on earth are we going to move forward off of that. And I love the premise of it so much. I love the idea of this revolution, and then you see the consequences, because I don't think enough series deal with the aftermath of that, because it's not just everything's great and utopian now. It's a mess, and they're dealing with the reality of that. I think is a really interesting story take. But yeah, I think it's much more plot driven than character driven. And there was a lot of convenience and some really unearned emotional gut punches that made me really mad. So, yeah.
I really like the second 3 so far.
Sure.
We'll see if Lightbringer changes your mind.
Yeah.
but I mean, I liked it for a lot. I mean, like you say, we bring ourselves to it.
Yeah.
And for me, I had that moment as a young man that I thought I knew what was right and I wouldn't listen to anyone else. And I thought I knew the right path to take, even though everyone
Yep.
was saying, "Hey, slow down there, young one."
Oh,
You know.
yeah.
So I could relate. I could understand it. I like the theme of "as below, so above." Once they got into
Yes.
power,
Yep.
they have to look at themselves in the mirror and go, "Oh, well, it's not as easy as we thought." To be fair,
Yeah.
those kind.
Yeah.
There's a lot there that I really liked.
There
and
is.
I really. Oh, and by the time you get to this last one after Lightbringer, well, Lightbringer is the last one, right?
So far. Yeah.
So far, yeah. It's just that moment for me where you just have. It's like Macbeth at the end of Macbeth when he's looking back over and he's like, "I've got to own all my mistakes."
Yeah.
Or I can't do what history's calling me to do. Like it's
Right.
just it's I don't know. We'll see what you think at the end, but I was rooting for you, Tori.
I mean, I still love the original trilogy. It's still one of my favorite book series of all time. So
There you go. Well,
yeah.
you'll always have the first one. Not to get too far off topic, Grifkin says, but is anyone not reading at Januarts for January?
I feel horrible. I have to finish a book. I have to finish a book, you guys. I can't.
So you haven't started Wars of Light and Shadow.
No, I've read to Ride Hell's Chasm.
Same.
And I also have her Cycle of Fire bind up that I'm planning on reading at some point soon. I'm at a point in like while I'm writing my epic fantasy series, I have to be really careful what I'm reading in terms of epic fantasy. So like I can't read Malazan right now. I know that I don't want to start Janny's series right now because I desperately want to read it because I know it's going to blow my mind. But there are certain things that I can't read while I'm writing.
I think that's fair. Sure.
Yeah. And I put Malazan down, which is one of my favorite series. I started reading Dead House Gates, one of my favorite books of all time. And I was like, I can't read this and write an epic fantasy at the same time because they are taking too much out of me mentally, both at the same time.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't started Malazan either, but I'm going to start Wars of Light and Shadow. Actually, I'm starting in December. I'm going to read the novella.
Oh, nice.
The Gallant in December, so I'm ready for January.
Nice.
But I can't wait. I cannot wait to start the series.
I can't wait to hear you guys talk about it.
I've heard so many amazing things about it. And
yeah,
like you were saying earlier, like what a bizarre, I mean, you've got to meet Steven Erikson. You've got to meet I've got to meet January. You've got to meet January. It's like, it's crazy what the internet allows us to do.
Well, and I think it's so important because it reminds us that everyone's human too.
Yeah.
Like, because kind of like we were talking about with the Legends of the Bruhai earlier, we kind of like put people up on a pedestal of like that I could never like talk to, Steven Erikson or Janny Wirtz or, and what I've loved so much about getting the opportunity to talk to these amazing writers who very graciously spent their time with me, is just what an amazing experience of shared passion and knowledge. Because I've learned so much from all of the authors that I've had on my channel. I mean, from the people that are publishing their first novel to people like Steve and Janny, who are like, prolific authors. And just, it's so fun to learn from them and to hear their stories and to hear all of their tips and tricks of all their time in the genre. And I mean, I've had some Juliette Marillier was another amazing.
I saw that.
She was a delight to talk to. Fonda Lee was so much fun to talk to. And that's such a gift that we have to be able to tap into the minds of these incredible creatives.
Okay. So let me make you choose between two fine guests, Fonda Lee and Juliette Marillier. Which should I start first? It's up to you, Tori. You have to put one of them behind the other, because I've not read either one. I have not read any of either one.
I think for you, I'm going to recommend Fonda Lee.
Okay.
I think you would enjoy both. I think you would really. What I love so much about you, John, as a booktuber and a reader, is that you are someone who really just accepts every book as what it is. Like you have such a gift for seeing the story that's being told and not expecting it to be something else. um, and I
Thank you.
think
That's very, very kind.
yeah, I think that's a really amazing skill set, because I can see you reading something that has that more ethereal fairy tale kind of quality that Juliette Marillier has, and just really loving that. I mean, I've read one of her books, and I bought one book and I read it, and I bought everything she's written based on one book. So just incredible writer. But also with Fonda Lee, I just think you are going to have so much fun with the Greenbone Saga, and I think you're going to love the politics and the characters and the action and the magic system. I think you're going to love it.
Now you're singing my song. All right, all right, I'm all in. I love that, and it's a trilogy too, so you can kind of, you can get in, you can get out. I love the trilogy. I feel like it's just the perfect size,
Yeah.
I just did this month my very first Robin Hobb, and I did it because it's like, it's a trilogy. I can do the first trilogy. I don't feel like I'm committing to
14 books.
Yeah,
16, 14. Yeah. I can't remember how many.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But you know what? What a lovely compliment, because I do think that if you try and turn your Etch-a-Sketch upside down and give it a shake, and you try to come to the art open and empty, and let the art be whatever the art's going to be, it has something to teach you. Even something I don't like, even something that doesn't hit me, if I'm open enough, it has something to teach me, and 100%. I can carry that with me. And that's what I love so much about BookTube and the indie world as well, because you were just describing it so well a second ago. This amazing ocean of people that are contributing story, and you yourself able to add some pages to it. It's just so enormously special that we all get to be a part and watch and go on these journeys with you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fun things I've found with the indie community especially is I can't wait to see some of my friends who are writing amazing things now. What are they going to be writing in 5 to 10 years? Oh my gosh. This is where we're starting. It's going to be so much fun to see that trajectory for all of these writers and to get to be part of the very early days of their careers. That is a really special thing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I just find that amazing. I cannot for the life of me, if I was a literary agent or a publisher or whatever, my ears would be so pricked open and I would be so tuned in to what's going on in this movement that's indie publishing, because this is where the boundaries are getting pushed and the new voices are coming from. Yeah. And I don't understand the deaf ear that seems to be, because I've asked authors before, it's like, have you been I'm shocked. I asked Jacqueline Hagan last, has anyone approached you to maybe represent you or do anything? She's like, oh no, not at all. And it's like, I don't think she would anyway, because I think her character, I don't think she'd let go. I can't believe no one has approached her.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many authors like that in the indie space, honestly, where you just read their books and you're like, what? But I mean, I remember reading the Wickwire Watch, and you and I are both massive Jacqueline Hagan fans. So reading Wickwire Watch for the first time and the genre blend that she does. And it's just, I was like, this is your debut? What? Wow. That's amazing.
I got to tell you though, I think this is right up there next to Wickwire Watch for me. As far as indie reads, this is right up there. The Adan trilogy, Riverfall Chronicles, and the Bruhai series are this to me. I mean, we'll see. I'm into Bound and the Broken. I'm really enjoying that.
Yep.
I'm really enjoying that. I'm going to see what this last book does for me.
Yeah.
But for right now in the indie space, those, if someone to ask my faves, those those are some of the ones I'd have to throw out there.
Well, I mean, Jackie and Philip are pretty amazing authors to be mentioned with, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, I got to hit you up as a booktuber.
Yes.
And in the indie space, what should people be grabbing? Not Philip, not Jackie. We already talked about. What am I missing? What am I missing? What have I not grabbed yet that I should be grabbing?
Oh, my
Michael
goodness.
right here says Murder at Spindle Manor. I don't know if
That
you've
was
read that one yet.
the Spiffbo winner from last year. Yes, I
Yeah.
have read that. Oh goodness sakes. Seasons of Albion by Chris Warman and Elon Marche is very short. It is Grimm's Fairy Tales meets Miyazaki. It's amazing and super short. It's incredible. One of my favorite indie reads ever. If you like really dark assassin fantasy, really dark female-led assassin fantasy, Assassin of Grins and Secrets by K.E. Andrews.
Andrew's been hitting me up for that one.
Oh, she's also incredible. The Collation Saga by Andrew Meredith. Nobody world builds like Andrew Meredith. I've never seen his equal in that. Like, I'm just amazed all the time.
That's having a Kickstarter right now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So he's got a few more days. I think
out.
8 or 9 more days left on the Kickstarter. He's already blown past a ton of his stretch goals. I'm so proud of him. I'm so excited to see those hardcovers come out.
Kay says Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering, still one of her favorites.
She just came out with a new one I got that's a lit. So for any of you guys who are lit RPG readers, Darktown she just wrote and has been getting amazing feedback. I've got that one up on my shelf. Wistful Ascending. John, read Wistful Ascending. You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
The lovely JCM Byrne just sent me that.
You're going to love it.
Absolutely, we'll be getting to it. Brian Bell says, I need to read Andrew Meredith's books. Where's a great place for him to start? I would say the Needle books. I started the first one, and I would say that's a great place to start.
Thrice is a great place to start if you want something that's a little bit quicker paced, Lone Wolf and Cub style story. If you want your big political, religious orders, epic fantasy, Collation Saga. And if you like cozy, Quaint Creatures, which is now a semifinalist in Spiffbo, is a new one as well. Wow. Yes, Nomads of the Sea by Kobe Zucker is also one of the biggest kept secrets in the fantasy genre of indie because it is a military epic fantasy set around like an archipelago. And if you liked the tribal themes in Bloodstones, usually I have a favorite character or a couple favorite characters in a book. I loved every single POV in this book. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. I could recommend it. We could be here for a while. So that
way to go, Kay. That was a good one,
Kay.
That was a good one. So do you have any plans coming up for your channel? Any video ideas we can look forward to?
Oh goodness. Yes,
you're gonna get back. I want to see more Tori.
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as I get my laptop and my editing program back, I'm coming back. I just filmed a most impactful memoirs I've ever read video. So that'll be coming out soon. I'm also going to do some more deep dive topic style videos in the next few weeks here, hopefully.
You would be good at that. You would be good at that.
I'm excited about that. I want to tackle some tough subjects. I'm going to talk about sexual violence and fantasy. I know everybody's going to be really excited about that. And we're going to talk about that. And some stuff like that I've been sitting on for a while that I really want to I want to talk about it. So
Samwise brings up a really good point. He says, wait, is John speaking with best-selling author Tori? I kind of, look, I want to ask, but I don't want to ask. You can stay as vague as you want.
Sure.
Is this doing what? I want to hear this is doing amazingly well.
You know what, John? For my debut epic fantasy, I honestly couldn't have been happier with that launch. It really had a good launch, really strong launch. We had over 100 pre-orders for Bloodstones, which was awesome, way beyond what I was expecting. And it has continued to gain momentum. I've got over 160 Goodreads, almost 160 Goodreads ratings now, which is also awesome.
That's great.
So I mean, it's doing really well. And I'm excited because I think with a lot of series like this, every book that gets added to the series just builds that momentum.
Sure.
So I'm really excited to see that.
Cal said,
thank you.
Guys, we moved some paper for you, Tori.
Thank you. Love the Kaladin profile picture, by the way.
Look, for me, this was special.
Thank you, John.
If you like epic fantasy, if you like character arcs that have moments of triumph and despair and each one is totally earned in that character motivations moment at that time, which means you're able to walk in their shoes and never be taken out of the book by going, would I do that? Would I not do that? You're able to use this as a tool of empathy and just live these characters' lives and go through their triumphs and despairs without ever missing a beat. It's like butter, as Janny said. And at the same time, you're taken to places that hopefully your life will never take you to. The themes like authoritarianism, how hard it is for the young people, how hard it is, genocide, refugeeism. There's so many deep, moving, emotionally impactful themes that are going on here that hold up a social mirror to our own world and make us think about our own place in the world while we're reading this book. And at the same time, it's just an amazing story about a world that has lost its magic. And what is it going to take to get back in these characters' arcs that are going throughout that quest? I cannot stress enough, if you give this a try, if you've never tried indie, you're looking for your next indie, you love indie, if you give this one a try, I would be completely shocked if it does not knock you back in your chair and go, damn, that was a good read.
Wow, thank you, John. I'm just going to frame that sales pitch.
Look, the only way I can say it is I can only say what I feel. I 100% felt every bit of that, Tori. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight, and I want to thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Because it's hard to find the chair. It's in this world filled with distraction, it is hard to wake up and say, you know what, to not create is a lie to myself and to the world I live in, and I'm going to find that chair and I'm going to create. And because you took that time and did that, we have this. And for me, this is special. So I really, from the bottom, man, thank you for finding the time.
Well, John, honestly, like I'm so honored when readers like you have such incredibly gracious things to say about it, because that's all the isolation of the chair in the cave writing the story. It's all for moments like this when I can see that someone else connected with these characters in the story that they're telling, and that there is no better feeling as a writer than that. So thank you for giving that to writers, because that keeps us going.
Look at this. Sienna, I think this is for you. I think this is for you, not me. You're very, very kind, Sienna. Thank you. Look, everyone, thanks so much for being here. Thanks very much for being in the chat. You guys made it amazing. Brian, awesome convo, you two. Brian is another one. He's read this, and he told me before I even started, oh my God, you're going to love this book. It is, I'm telling you guys, it's special. If you haven't picked this one up yet, you are missing out. Griffkin, right here, I can verify that there was at least one copy of Bloodstones left on her website. And was this a signed one?
Yeah, so you can buy signed paperbacks on my website.
What?
And I need to order another box because I've sold out of them again. So yeah, if you would like one, and my website shows 0, just message me, because I might have a couple laying around somewhere. So yeah, if you can't find it on the website, just let me know.
That is better than my link down there, because, you know, but
ToriTalks.com.
Check it out, everybody. Check it out, everybody. Tori, thank you so much for spending some time with me.
There you go,
special. We've been going very close for like an hour and a half, and I don't want to take up any more time. I know you got a family and stuff to get back to. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much. This was kind of that weird amalgam of talking with tubers and artist journey. But I had Tori.
Genre blending. We're just genre blending. Yeah.
I had you on before on artist journey, and it's like, I want all the people to be here for you. I really want this to be more like a party feel. And I hope that came across. And everyone that catches up on replay, Team Replay, get this book. Just get the book. Get the book. Everyone,
thanks, John.
Thanks so much. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
And